Welcome to Studio Hockey. My name is Ernst Baart, and I'm joined by my co-host in this podcast, Jaspreet Singh. Studio Hockey is all about domestic and international hockey, and together we make sure that we look at our game of hockey from both a European and a more Asian perspective. Our guest for today is James Mazarelo, goalkeeper, and as far as we know, doing this for at least four teams at the same time this year, James. We've got Great Britain, we've got England, we've got the Old Georges in the English Premier Division and the Euro Hockey League, obviously, and finally you're also in a team with no name in the Hockey India League. Formerly the UP Rudras, who threw in the towel and is it's some kind of a nameless team that's managed by the league itself who took over the team. So maybe let's start there. What happened?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, yeah, really, really unfortunate kind of situation with the UP Rudras in terms of, I think, well, I suppose kind of what we've been told is financially there was there wasn't necessarily the financial certainty around the league that they wanted going forward, and so I think they had to unfortunately take the decision to pull out of the league going forward, which certainly as players of the team we were gutted about. They were so supportive as a franchise, led us really well, created a great culture, and I certainly loved my time there, and I think everybody would stay the same. So obviously very gutted that we won't be kind of under the UP Rudras banner this year, but obviously kind of excited still to be together as the group, as a very similar group that we had last year. And yeah, obviously, like you say, we're not really sure what our team name is going to be. Obviously, it's kind of the Hockey India League kind of governing council team, I think, at the moment. Whether that will change by the time
it rolls off the tongue. It just rolls off the tongue.
Yeah, and we'll have to find a way of getting that a little bit quicker, but we'll see. But yeah, no, still very excited for the league, and yeah, hopefully we can do a little bit better than last year as well.
Okay, Jaspreet, you told me he's from Indian descent.
Yeah. That was just before this podcast that I sent a message out to us that and telling him about you, James, that you are from Indian descent, Goa in particular, which again is very happening place, and you have been there, and I'm sure you have been there. Um, Tell us something about that. We have read a lot, a family of doctors, a family of players as well at football and hockey. Tell us in detail. Tell our viewers in detail. Set the record straight.
Yeah, so I suppose kind of my heritage to kind of be very clear on that is my dad is Indian and grew up in Goa, and my mum is English. So dad obviously grew up in Goa, did train as a doctor, and then after his training moved across to England. But yeah, I think Indian heritage is still something I'm massively proud of, massively kind of in touch of, and obviously it's great when I get to come and play in India, whether it's for the Hockey India League or internationally, to kind of just kind of get in touch with that side of my heritage a little bit more than obviously when you're kind of living in England. But it's great. Lots of my dad's family still live in India, and so obviously when I come across, it's very much easier to kind of be in contact with them, and they obviously with hockey being so big in India, they're also more aware of stuff going on then. So yeah, no, it's something that I'm really proud of, and it's such a great opportunity to almost play in the league as well. I think coming across as an international is almost a very different environment, given that we're kind of the enemy at that point, in that we're obviously playing India and wanting to win. Whereas when you're playing for a franchise, and obviously in last year's case it was for UP, kind of building that connection with kind of the Indian public and also players to an extent, like, and I think probably having that Indian connection as such potentially help with some of the younger players. Of obviously they they had much better English than they ever thought they did. But obviously they're less confident when internationals come
What
across.
about what about skills? Your Hindi skills.
Uh,
Did
yeah, well,
those come?
it's limited. It's limited. It's. When I came across there, we had a few kind of defenders who were not who preferred to be communicated to in Hindi rather than English. So I definitely learn the basics of left, right, up, back, and all of those things to try and make it.
What beyond namaste and what in hockey terminology did you learn about the Hindi words? For some examples for us.
Well, this is the thing. I probably need to brush up on it by the time I get back, because all I'm doing when I come back is right, left is very easy in English, and then you're suddenly going. I basically sat down with it was Surrender Kumar and Hardik going, right, help me here. I need left, right, up, everything, and then it basically took me a week of trying to get the pronunciation right. So I'm not even going to try and put it now. I've had 9 months off just for it, so I'm not going to try. But yeah, no, I think, to be honest, though, it's really important, because if you want somebody to do something quickly in front of you, if they're not, English is not going to be their first thing that they're going to react to, so they don't think. Whereas if I can then just say something that they are more attuned to and understand, and this is what they're used to every day, and that's a relatively simple change for one person to make rather than 4 people in front of me to make, I'd rather make that change. So yes, it's also reminding me that I need to brush up on that before I go back in a couple of months.
So I'm guessing you also learned to swear in Hindi then.
Well, to be fair, no, actually, I'll have to add that into. I'll have to add that into. When they know I'm angry and I'm shouting at them.
Exactly.
Right.
Expletives all in Hindi from the post.
Well, let's bring it back to Europe and talk about your glory moments a little bit earlier this season when you stunned in the Euro Hockey League. You stunned the multiple winners of Bloemendaal by beating them in the shootouts with Old Georgians to advance to the final 8 of the Euro Hockey League. How did it happen, and how did that feel? Because beating Bloemendaal, that's a big thing, huh?
Oh, definitely. I think so. Obviously, when the draw came out, and that would have been kind of in the summer, I think. You obviously know that it's going to be a massive challenge. You obviously know the history of Bloemendaal, the quality of team that they had, and that they have now. We knew it was going to be a massive challenge. And to be fair, like we put massive plans in place. We've done a lot of scouting early, so we were able to prep for a long time in advance coming up to it, which definitely helps. So credit to kind of Ash Jackson and our coaching team for that, is that they were very on it with the plans that we were doing. And I suppose you also, like, hockey is a game of basically, if you're clinical in front of goal, it can be a very different game. And luckily in that game we had probably 3 good chances, and then Alan Forsyth took 2 of them incredibly well, and then the game is open up then. And we knew that, like, we have massive quality, and that kind of showed probably there is in our forward line. We had 3 chances, put 2 away, perfect. And then defensively, we just worked really hard for each other. It was kind of the best team performance we've put in probably this year. But probably by a significant margin, to be fair. Everyone was working so hard for each other defensively. If there was a mistake, somebody was there mopping it up for the other guy next to them. So, yeah, I think in terms of, to answer your question, how did it feel? It was amazing. It's kind of one of those things that we kind of thought we had a chance, but probably deep down you're going, it's maybe it's not as easy as some of the league games that we might play, for example. So I think we always backed ourselves and believed we could do it. It's just whether we could get over the line. And obviously the last quarter was a little bit of hanging on and managing that, and kind of going through all the emotions of the heartbreak of the overtime corner, going in, then getting disallowed, then we go to shootout, then you go, yeah. So
how is it for a goalie to win such an important game on a shootout? Because there you're always have an impact on the game, obviously, but in a shootout, the impact of a
Yeah.
goalie is multiplied, obviously. So how does that feel?
Yeah, to be honest, I suppose in the moment you're kind of so focused on what you're doing, that you're kind of trying to stay in, especially that's kind of my approach, is to try and stay in my own bubble as such. So I don't really know. I suppose it was slightly different in this scenario because normally you know straight from the end of the game that you're going into shootouts, whereas we were kind of waiting for it felt like an age. I don't know how long it was. This review, and we were like, oh, we're not sure. People, to be honest, I had no idea what had gone on. It was just absolute carnage in front of me. But then people from the halfway line were pretty sure it was a backstick. So they were kind of going, right, make sure you're ready. And I'm going, I haven't seen anything here. So
Yeah,
let's
yeah,
just go on, kind of going, hoping it's not been the way, because it kind of like had mirrors or like echoed the summer of like the France game with the Europeans, of just conceding right in the basically in the last second to then lose. Whereas obviously it was a slightly different situation, that it was going shootout. But so yeah, trying to take myself away, keep myself in my own bubble, think about kind of the plans, how I wanted to approach the shootout, and then yeah, like you said, it's a massive opportunity for us to have a bigger impact on the game, which kind of from a selfish point of view as a goalie, I love having that
yeah,
opportunity to show what I believe to be a kind of a super strength of my game, of kind of the ability to be agile, move quickly in those positions. So yeah, and then obviously after it then kind of all sinks in a little bit more. But in that moment, it's very much, what's my next action going to be? Do I know the taker? Do I not? What am I going to do? What's my plan in that situation? So yeah.
yeah. Is it an advantage for a goalie to be a young goalie like yourself in those kind of a shootouts, or do you think it would be an advantage to be a more experienced, more aged, but more experienced goalie who's been through those situations before?
I definitely think experience helps. In terms of, obviously you've been in that situation, you kind of have experience of dealing with all the kind of emotions, the pressure, the kind of the tension of the game. Because I think it's very hard until you've done that to really understand what's going to go through your head. Because as much as you try and practice shootouts at training, the consequences are never really there. Like if you miss in training, it's like, oh well, I can take another one. Or whereas, and that's the difference for goalies, really. In that, I think it's probably easier to replicate what the goalie has to do, the demands of the goalie in training.
Mm, yeah,
Whereas the attacker has a lot more pressure in the mental side to deal with in those moments where if you miss, then you could be out of the competition. Whereas at training, it's like, oh, I can wait 2 minutes and then I have another go. So um, I think probably I would say age, it's more kind of probably around the physical capabilities of you as a goalie. Because there's some amazing kind of older goalies who are still so agile and mobile in that space. Like if you put Vanash, Davey Hart, Srijesh was still amazing at shootouts when he kind of retired. And so I think it's kind of that blend of experience or being able to manage those emotions in that situation, but also having the physical capability to be able to get your body into some strange positions, but also be able to mirror the attacker and put them under pressure, because obviously they can move without kit, right? So we've
yeah,
got to be able to move as quickly as possible there. So bit of a cop out answer, but I think you've kind of got to have a bit of both experience of the situation, but also physically able to deal with it. And in theory, younger goalies should be able to put themselves in better positions, but having seen some of the older guys being able to put themselves in splits and all of those things, I don't think necessarily the older guys are at too much of a disadvantage. Or I'm hoping that anyway. Hopefully I can still do that in 10 years' time.
yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
Srijesh once that goalkeepers become better with age. I don't know how much of this is true, but we have seen Vanash and Srijesh doing great things, even on the other side of 30 in the early 30s or later 30s. But how much do you agree with that? You mentioned a little bit about that goalkeepers do get better with age, but do you agree with that?
I think I do. I think there's obviously kind of the wider experience piece, but also just kind of reading. So I suppose the experience helps with reading situations and your decision making. But I think you probably get a more balanced understanding of kind of the world and the perspective of each situation. Whereas kind of even now, from when I first started in the international program to now, kind of my perspective of performance and kind of what things happen. So obviously, when you make a mistake and you're thinking about that, actually older guys, I think that's probably the thing that separates the older guys to the younger guys is how quickly they can move on and appreciate that like mistakes are going to happen. Whereas probably when you first come in, everything becomes a be all and end all, and you have to be perfect all the time, which is completely irrational and can't happen. And I think older goalies are more able to hold that perspective more often, whereas probably the younger goalies are less able to, potentially because they're fighting for that position when they come in, is they feel they need to be perfect in order to kind of be regarded in the same way as the older guys, whereas the older guys have that and have their reputation built up. So they can feel that they can kind of, maybe they feel they can get away with a couple of things and actually it's not going to affect how they're viewed by everybody else. I think there is probably also they build an understanding of their game and how they are able to put their best performances out there, whether that's from a preparation point of view or more from like a tactical, technical element of these are my super strengths that I want to show and be predisposed to showing in the game. So will put themselves in scenarios where they can show that. Whereas probably as a younger age, when you've not been involved in international hockey for so long, it's harder to understand how they can position themselves or read the play in a way that allows them to execute their skill sets to the best of their ability. So, no, I would agree. I would agree.
Yeah. Let me bring you back to this summer. You already mentioned the game earlier in your answer. I'm sure those memories will be a little bit less happy than the ones from the Euro Hockey League. So when we're talking about the European Championships, as you mentioned, you lost out to the French in the pool games in really the dying minutes of the game, and just ended up sixth of that championship because of that. We talked before the championships. We had a podcast with Zach Wallace, who was a little bit more ambitious than sixth place, to be honest. So. What were your feelings? What happened in that game? And yeah, how do you look back at the European Championships?
Yeah, look, it's a really difficult question because I think obviously from an outcome point of view, it's nowhere near what we wanted to be. And we kind of set our sights of, well, ultimately we wanted to win the tournament. And obviously wanted to try and, at worst case scenario, be kind of involved in the medal games. But then you also kind of flip side it and go from a personal point of view. How did I play from a purely goalkeeping and my own performance point of view? And there was an element of, and this is kind of the hard nature of being a goalie at times, is sometimes there is very little you can do about the goals that go in. And so if you take the France game, probably there's very little I could have done in any of those goals really to change the outcome of those games, to change the outcome of the game. Sorry. So it's difficult because it wasn't a perfect tournament, but how do I look back on it? And I go, probably from a personal point of view, was pretty happy with how it went. But obviously that doesn't align with the outcome, which is ultimately why we play the sport. So it's a very hard situation to be in because I would give up everything. I would have played terribly. And if we won a gold medal or a silver medal, I'd be like, yeah, that's 100% the option I want to take. But sport isn't, unfortunately, like that. And we always are going to have moments of brilliance and like success that we all love. But equally, you're going to have low times, and France was one of those, unfortunately. But I think that also makes sport and those winning moments so much sweeter when you realize how much difficult moments and also the lows that you go through mean that those highs that you do get, whenever they are, mean so much more and are so special. So yeah, I think there's lots of learnings for us to take into the World Cup around how we manage that tournament. And probably also the summer going into it, we weren't at the level we wanted to be and haven't been, and weren't at the level we probably were in the previous 2 years of the last cycle with GB. And I think there's hopefully steps that we can make in this year's Pro League going into the World Cup that we can hopefully make amends for the outcome that happened at the Euros in the summer.
I was reading an article on you where they mentioned you as Surbiton stopper. Of course, from where you come from. It was way back. I think when the last Hockey India League auction happened, when the league came back from the dead almost. So there was a fight for you between three. I think UP Rudras was one, Kalinga Lancers was the other one, and I think Hyderabad Tufans was the third one, who just were involved in a bidding war for James Mazarelo. How did it feel, or sitting at home watching three teams fighting for James Mazarelo?
Well, I do have a confession to make. It's actually we were in the gym at the time as like a GB squad, so I wasn't actually watching it live. So then I came out the gym, and then my phone had kind of exploded with people sending this message going, "Oh, like there was this bidding war going on." I'm like, "What? No, surely not." This because I suppose kind of the way I'd initially seen it is I didn't realize how they were going to structure the auction. So obviously you kind of had international goalies, and I think they changed it this year, which it was kind of like the base price. So the highest base price went first, then middle base price, and then bottom base price. So I put myself in at the bottom base price because I was just really excited to go and just, well, hopefully get the opportunity to go. However, once obviously all the goalies had gone first and all the 10s came out, I was like, oh, I'm in trouble here. Like, I'm not going to get picked. And I think there was a little bit of luck around. I think potentially there were other goalkeepers that were meant to be in the 10 that then dropped out. And then obviously the UP Rudras and I think Kalinga were the only teams that didn't have an international goalie at that.
Don't so modest. No need to be. Can be honest. No need to be.
Well, I think to be honest, there was probably part of that is that they obviously need an international goalie. They then looked at who else was left, and then luckily they decided to go with me. And then I think probably Kalinga and Toucans were maybe playing a little bit of a game to drive it up because they were like, well, we'll just make them pay a little bit more. So, but yeah, look, like I think it was something that I was so excited to be involved in. And I think that was ultimately the reason I put myself in at the lowest base price, because I suppose I've got, like we talked about earlier, the Indian heritage, but also just getting to play in a competition like the Hockey India League was just an amazing kind of proposition in my head that I wanted to be involved in. So yeah, it was quite nice to see the bidding war, but ultimately I was just so happy to kind of be in a team and get the opportunity to play in a tournament where, well, in a country, in a tournament where hockey means so much. And get to experience that, which is, yeah, an experience that I'll never forget. And hopefully we can make some amazing more memories this time around as well.
Yeah, with the team with no name, huh?
Well, exactly. But maybe we'll make our own name.
Oh, let's get creative there. So, but how did you feel that first season of the Hockey India League? Because it is an amazing tournament. It's an amazing event to be a part of. And when I talk to younger players, I always tell them, yeah, exactly what you did. Put yourself in at the lowest base price, because just don't go for the money, go for the experience there. How did you experience that first year?
Oh, it was crazy, like in such an amazing way. Like, I think you don't know what it's going to be like, and you're just kind of throwing yourself in there going, right, let's just take it all in. And just like, I suppose the passion from the Indian people, you kind of see more firsthand than when you play internationally, because they're actually really invested in your team rather than kind of, obviously you're playing against them, so they're a little bit, they love hockey, but they also know that you're trying to stop their team achieving what they want. So that was amazing. I think also just seeing some of the talent of the young Indian guys in the team that obviously are not playing senior internationally, in some cases not even involved in the senior pathway, but kind of the technical skills that they have are just unbelievable. And so watching some of the young guys that were in our team, what they could do with a stick and a ball, we had some amazing technical players in our team, like James Mazarelo, Forrest Falterball, and they were looking there going, I can't do these things, and these are like young Indian guys, and so I think seeing what some of the young guys could do was also amazing. I think it was also just really rewarding to kind of be thrown into an environment where we obviously all come from incredibly different backgrounds, and some of the journeys that some of the young guys had to go through to kind of be where they were, and also the older guys, what they've had to do and what they've come from, where they've come from, to then be in a position where like hockey has allowed them to kind of provide for their families and transform their situation was incredibly kind of humbling to hear, but also amazing to see that hockey has that kind of power to bring so much good to people in a country, which obviously kind of from an England point of view, it's not necessarily the same. It's a predominantly, oh wow, I think that's what probably is fair to say, a more middle class sport, with certain demographics playing more than others. So I think it's so exciting to see, or it was great to see the impact that hockey can have in India, and just building friendships for life. Like I've kind of been in contact with a lot of guys, even though we've not been in India for the last kind of 9 months. Staying in contact with them, seeing how they're doing, like those things are also those things you can't replace, which is really cool.
You Ernst mentioned at the start of our chat that you're playing for 4 different teams in Netherlands, in England, of course, and in India. And you talked about the kind of skills and the strengths in terms of hockey that the Indian players bring forward, and you have seen that firsthand in the Hockey India League. If you were asked to compare the bench strengths or the second teams of, say, Netherlands or any team in Europe or your own team, England, where do you rank it in terms of comparing it to the bench strength or the grassroots strength that India has?
I think, to be honest, the depth of Indian hockey from a technical point of view probably certainly far exceeds England's. I can't necessarily comment having on necessarily other nations, but I think probably where we kind of get away with it. So when we play kind of junior teams, so under 21 against India under 21, the games are normally quite close, and I think so. When I was kind of in the under 21s, we ended up winning a couple of times against them in the Sultan of Johor Cup, and basically, like, technically they were so good. I think probably tactically was a difference where we could make up that shortfall. And so we basically would set ourselves up, and however we were pressing the man-to-man or zone, and we knew that if we kind of stuck to that, we would then have opportunities going forward. And so I think and potentially that is why the Hockey India League's been brought in, is to kind of help. They know that technically they are some of the best players in the world. They probably have, if you had the best 100 players in India technically against the best 100 players in any other country in the world, I think they would technically be better than any other team. I think tactically is who knows? Maybe I'm being biased, but I think some of the stuff I've seen.
Right. Oh.
I am biased. I am biased.
I think probably also when you look at Holland and Belgium, you have massively young club systems that work really hard with their players. So I think, and I can't comment on those ones. So I think that I'll give myself a little caveat there and a get out clause. I think tactically, that's kind of the way we saw the games, like England and GB against India, of like, they are going to be ridiculous at trapping the ball. they're in a 1v1, they're going to be great because they're stick skills, and in front of goal, they're going to be really clinical because they can hit the ball really hard and they can pick it on any bouncing ball, any angle, whatever. So we knew that we had to tactically outthink them and outsmart them, and that was kind of the game plan. So I think with the Hockey India League coming in, potentially that is helping those guys really understand the kind of the tactical nuances of the game, and hopefully, well, will allow those guys to develop so that when they are playing for the senior Indian team, they kind of already have a bit more of an understanding of the tactical base that probably those coaches are trying to bring in then, and then hopefully that kind of accelerates their performance and learning.
Yeah, you mentioned a little bit earlier the beautiful journeys that you learned from your teammates from the Hockey India League, older and younger, the different kind of journeys that they made to get to where they were. But how about your own journey? How did you get into hockey, and how did you the hell became a goalie? Who wants to be a goalie? Come on.
Only the best people want to be goalies, right? No, so I used to play football. Is kind of the short answer to that. Is that my primary school? I was the goalie for football, and then my primary school. So they kind of that's up to age 11. They decided to enter a hockey tournament, and they were like, "Well, you're the football goalie. You can go and goal for the hockey team." I was like, "Okay, great." Like played it like a football goalie. Was sliding on people's feet, having a great time. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Taking people out left, right, and center. And then I kind of went to secondary school. Didn't really think anything of it after that. And then the local club, which was Bowden Hockey Club, they were missing a goalkeeper in my age group. So I kind of got drafted in there, and then played for fun, and then kind of never went away and just kept bubbling away in the background. And then I kind of gradually started moving up the systems, and then kind of we have like a player pathway. So you have county, which is kind of the regional areas, and then north of England, and then England under 16s is kind of the first international team that you can get selected for. And probably kind of when I was 15, I started feeling that actually maybe there was a chance I could do this. So I started taking it a little bit more seriously as my main sport, and kind of then stopped playing the football, cricket, and the other sports I had on the side, and mainly focused on the hockey side. So yeah, that's how I ended up being a goalkeeper, purely by chance. I did play one game as an outfielder when we were winning that 8-0 at halftime. They were like, "Right, you can go and play outfield." So I was stuck on as a striker, and then
it's always the goalies are always the strikers, and they score. Eh? They score goals. Eh?
Well, I think I have to say the umpire was probably a little bit nice to me. I probably scored 2 back stick reverses that they kind of allowed, which I'm not sure they should have done, given we were probably like 8-0 up at the time. But obviously it made my day, and I thought I was amazing. And then you realise that actually you're not very good. So that's why I stuck in goal.
Yeah. But I even remember official tournament. I think it was played in India, where the German team had lost a lot of players because of absolutely. And Apple, the second goalie, had to play up front as a striker and played beautifully. Yeah.
Yeah, well, it was a great finish. I mean, fair play to him. It was a great trap on a bobbling cart, so then he's managed the composure to scoop it in. Yeah, fair play to him.
Yeah. Is that your dream to once be called upon as a striker and score in an international event?
It's probably not up there, if I'm honest. I think if me running around against some very skillful fullbacks, I'm not sure I'm necessarily the best fit for that. I think I'd look probably a little bit out of place unless I had a 39-inch stick, because obviously I'm like 6'4", quite skinny, long limbs. Probably doesn't look great when you're charging around at the front, especially when you know I'm a goalie. So I think I'll stick to being a goaler.
Yeah.
On that note, my last question to you, which is the same one which I asked Zach Wallace as well when he came on our podcast. And Ernst has already got an idea what it is. He doesn't know right now because it's not part of the script. We don't have a script for this podcast. It's when India played GB in the quarterfinals of the Paris. Uh,
Yeah.
we were down to down to 10 men in the 17th minute, if I'm not wrong. I played the last 43 minutes with 10 men, and after Rohidas was red carded, of course, and went on to draw the game 1-1 and then win in shootout.
Yeah.
Zak was not very happy when I reminded him about it, but being uh, you being an Englishman of Indian descent, which instinct kicked in? Was it the English instinct or the Indian instinct?
Well, look, I mean, it was the British instinct. If I'm going to be really honest, having sat there in the stands, and obviously, like my role for Paris was obviously not the role I wanted, being kind of the reserve goalie there. But obviously, we're sat watching the game with the other two reserves the other two guys not playing in the game with the staff, and you kind of are thinking, well, it got to half time, and we're kind of sat there, and it's 1-1, and you're going, this is going to be an interesting one. Like you can't like it's the Olympics down to 10, sitting deep against us, looking to play counter attack. Some of the guys like Srijes was having a worldie, Hardik was playing really well. They were all defending like they had nothing, well, like their lives depended on it really. So we knew it was going to be. You could just see it. You could kind of. I said to one of the guys at half time, "This is although we're up a player. This is going to be incredibly difficult. Like it's going to be a moment of magic that determines the game." And I suppose it probably did from kind of like a Srijesh point of view of he made two unbelievable saves in that second half that maybe on another day he doesn't make, and the game's very different and is a very different outcome. Um, yeah, I think to be honest, it was just one of those situations that you do prep for in terms of like playing against a team with less men, but because it's kind of such a temporary time period, kind of what you would necessarily play against it is different when you've then got the whole challenge for 40. Well, if you say 17 minutes in, 43 minutes of the game, they're never actually going to probably look to press out against you, so you're going to have no space. Whereas for 2 minutes, you can draw them out, and you've tired them out for when they come back on. Whereas the 43 minutes, they kind of had no intention of pressing out. They were just going to be really deep and compact, which is obviously a different challenge that we probably hadn't prepped as much as we could have done for, which isn't probably understandable. So I just think it was just incredibly hard to watch, and knowing that the guys had put in so much. I mean, we all had from a squad point of view, had trained so hard for so many, well, for years basically for that moment, and then you kind of see it all tumbling down in front of you, going, these guys it's going to be incredibly hard for these guys to pick themselves up if they don't get over the line here. But I think, look, we took a lot of learnings from that. Took a lot of learnings from the Euros this summer, and hopefully we can kind of use those. I think it's the story of a lot of international teams of they almost go through the losing stage to ultimately get to the winning stage of like Belgium is a great example of that. Kind of in there before they got to their heyday of almost losing big competitions to then win, and hopefully that's hopefully where we see ourselves as we're in that losing phase to get to the winning phase. But you never know. You never know. That's the beauty of sport, right? That's why we play it, because that uncertainty. If there was certainty,
Absolutely.
no one would.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Um, One of the questions that I always like to finish with is how does your future look like? Because you've made that very strange decision to become a goalie. You've made that very strange decision to become a goalie in hockey when you could have been a goalie in football. If you would have been a goalie in football, I wouldn't have to ask you about your future. It would have been set.
Yeah, that's very true.
Yeah. So
Very, very.
you made a very strange decision there to choose goalie in hockey. Uh, and I'm sorry to say I doubt that you will make enough money from this game of hockey to last you a lifetime. So what are you doing besides hockey, and how do you see your own future? You still got many years to go in hockey, I'm sure of that. But are you already thinking about that?
Oh, definitely. Well, I'm constantly reminded by my girlfriend Lauren that hockey is not gonna pay the bills forever. So no, look, I think it's a really important part of. I think also for my hockey is having that balance. So kind of I've always studied alongside. So I've done a master's and finished my undergraduate degree at Loughborough University. So I finished with my master's in sport management, politics, and international development. So very long title. But I've now been working for a public leisure consultancy firm, so a small scale firm called SLC. So I suppose for you guys, it might be also it's a different context to understand, but a lot of sport is run by kind of the local government in England. So councils. So we are employed by those local councils, local authorities, to basically help run their sport and leisure service better. So that might be looking from like active community programs to outreach into the community, but also their leisure facilities like leisure centres, hubs, etc. So we can help. We go in, help write their strategies of what they need to do going forward, and also uh, most of these centres that are owned by the council are run by an external operator. So we help, and they're like massive companies. So we help run the process of when they're these facilities. It kind of effectively goes out for a bidding process. So these big operators bid for the opportunity to run kind of the 5 leisure centres owned by the council, the 7 depending on the size of the council. So look, that's a really rewarding kind of area of work, in that there's certain councils that aren't necessarily or a deprived area of the country, and so their public leisure service is a really important part of their ecosystem that they live in, to ensure that they are healthy and kind of can get the outcomes that they almost deserve from life. So some areas, their life expectancy is significantly lower. In some areas, it can be like very high 50s, low 60s, whereas across the country, you're kind of thinking more 70s, and in some cases even into the 80s. So in terms of how we can use public leisure to make them healthy, more active, and so that they can live longer, have a better quality of life from both a mental health point of view, but also from a physical health point of view, that's an incredibly rewarding point of view, and also probably puts hockey into perspective for me. So, like, obviously, you could take the example of the France game of the Euros, where we've missed out on going to the semi-finals. But then probably a week later, I was then sat in a meeting for a council that you're then talking about. They've got the second highest suicide rates in the country. We need to do something. We need to do something about this. So then you realise that actually hockey is brilliant, but there's definitely more to life than hockey. And actually, some of the work we can do can be incredibly helpful and beneficial for local communities to help solve these problems. And then realise that hockey, and whether you win or lose a European final, it's massive. But actually, whether these guys can have opportunity to live a long, healthy life that we're ultimately very lucky enough to do, but they don't have the opportunity to do, you then realize there's a lot bigger, there's bigger issues at play in the world than whether you've won a hockey match or not at the end of the day, which is quite it definitely helps with that perspective side of things. So hopefully can keep building my career in that, and then we will go from there, really.
Cool. Final question for you, Jaspreet?
I am done. Let me see my pockets if there is any left. No, nothing.
Cool. Hey, James, it's been fun talking to you about hockey. Thanks very much for sharing your time with us here. I'm sure that we could go on and on and on and on, but it is a weekend when we're recording this, and there are games ahead of us today. So we need to close it off here. So guys, thanks for listening to Studio Hockey. Make sure that you subscribe to our podcast. You will not miss out on our next episodes. Until next time, happy hockey, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.